Okay, we'll get going on this then. If everyone's listening, so thank you very much for joining us. I'm Paul from Xcede. Some of you will know me, some of you won't. I've been with Xcede for many years, coming up to 19 now, working across analytics, marketing analytics, and business intelligence. Part of the wider analytics team that we've got here in the UK, which is data science and data engineering and product analytics. Today, we're lucky to have Karen as a guest speaker from Monzo, who's going to talk us through unlocking barriers to get analytics potential. I've known Karen for many years, and she's held her hand up today to share some knowledge. So the plan's going to be, I'll pass over to Karen. Karen will talk through a presentation. Please feel free to ping questions in the chat, and Karen will retrieve them at the end, and we'll go from there. So no further ado, I will hand you over to Karen.
Thanks, Paul. And when you were saying we've known each other for many years,
Yes.
something that you forgot to mention is you're actually responsible for me moving to London,
Yeah, I
which
know, but
is
I didn't want to big myself up too much, Karen. I thought I'd leave those minor details to you, or little details to you.
what a game changer. I mean, this definitely changed my life for the better. So thank
Good,
you for
good, good.
that. And thanks for the intro. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. If I manage it, this one, no. Maybe I should have done that before. There you go. Right, so today, as Paul said, we're going to be talking about removing barriers to unlock the potential of data analytics. And I'm going to try to go through all the content. I've realized as I was building this talk that there is so much to talk about there. So I will just try to make sure I cover as much as possible without like talking too fast. And I will take questions at the end. So we all know and we've all noticed, I guess, that in the last few years, so I think maybe in the last 15 years, data has been at the top of mind of most people, and the field has increased quite drastically in the last 12 years. And so this graph is showing basically the Google search index for the word data science. I thought this was quite an impactful one, showing how the interest, so how the search for the word data science has increased over time, with the small exception of the pandemic. And that really shows the interest that everyone is having for data. But yet, even though the interest is increasing, we're still struggling to gain value from our data initiative. So a research done by Gartner has found that about 85% of data and analytics initiatives fail to deliver the business results that were intended. And a research done by Women in Data found that about 70% of data professionals are struggling to find definition in their career. So they're really struggling to define their career, understand their next step. And that means that they then feel a bit lost. With these two things that I showed, I do believe that there is a very big untapped potential in data that is waiting to be unlocked. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So today I will basically share some obstacles and issues that I find that hinder the full potential of data analytics and data science in our own roles, but also for businesses. Sorry, I'm just removing my bracelets because they're making a lot of noise. Right. So the things we're going to look into for this talk today is firstly the lack of career guidance that data professionals experience, especially early on in their career. Then we're going to move on to the misalignment between data professionals' expectations and that of businesses. And we're going to finish on poor cross-functional collaborations. And what we're going to do is I'm going to walk through these three problems, um, talk about what causes them, and then I would equip you with some strategies on how to remove these barriers. Let's start with addressing the lack of career guidance that data professionals experience. I thought, so instead of just hearing from me in this presentation, I thought that it would be great for you to also hear from other people. So people who work in data, who are part of my network, and I asked them to share some stories. So throughout the presentation, I'm also going to share some stories. When it comes to the lack of career guidance and the lack of career clarity, a lot of people feel like they never had any clarity in their career. So it's been difficult to understand what's the next step. It's been difficult to understand what it is that they have to do to get promoted. And because of that, they had to frequently change job to get career progression. So this is one of my friends who is an analytics director that said that. And I've obviously changed the name to preserve people identity, but I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this feeling. I know I certainly can. And as I said, many people can relate to that, and that shows in the industry that the average time an analyst stays in an organization is 18 months. So there is a big problem of retention that's relating potentially. I mean, I know that um, correlation doesn't mean causation, but we can definitely see how career clarity and the lack of progression opportunities can make someone feel like they have to leave their organization. So, what causes this to happen? I believe that the first one is the pace at which the field moves. And I mean, I don't know when you started your career, but I remember when I started, I was still in Paris, and you could not find a job if you didn't know how to code with SAS. Now, the majority of organizations do not care about whether you know how to code with SAS or not today. It's more about, can you code Python? Can you use the latest data visualization? Everybody's talking about um, LLMs right now. And it's very incredible how fast the field moves. And that means that sometimes it's very difficult to stay on top of everything. The next one, I believe, is the ambiguity around job titles. I think we've all seen data analytics and data science, the whole war around what's what and who should be called what and what are the different responsibilities. But also, job titles are being created at light speed. Last time I was going on LinkedIn, I found someone who had the job title as data philosopher, and I was thinking, what is that? So, with the job chat titles being used a bit as organization want to use them and new job titles being created, it means that it's a bit difficult to understand where we sit in the field and what skills we're meant to be having. Poor access of mentor and coaches, I think this one is very self-explanatory. And lastly, the learning and development responsibilities that are left just to the individual. So many organizations think that learning and development should just be on the individual. So I, Karen, should be responsible for my own learning and development. I believe this is a problem because if already you're struggling with career guidance, how can you really identify what it is that you have to learn and how you have to develop to progress in your career or get promoted to the next level? I do believe it is a team sport and a joint effort that both the organizations, their manager, and the individual should look after. So let's look into how we can actually address this lack of career guidance. As I said, joint effort. So I think everybody should, I guess, work together to address these barriers. And to me, the first step is career crafting, then going on into improving the access to mentors and coaches, and then looking into creating better structure for learning and development. So for career crafting, this is how I suggest you could approach. So if career crafting is something you want to get into to get clarity into how to craft your career, this is what you can do. So you would think about where you're at today and then where you want to go tomorrow. And that would be asking yourself, so where you're at, what are your skills, what are your responsibility, what do you like most about your job, what do you dislike, what are your strengths, and what do you think is holding you back. You can also do that by asking other people around you. Getting feedback is very, very important, and that can also lead to you seeing some I guess, common themes that you might not have thought of. And then in terms of tomorrow, thinking about what responsibilities you would like to have, what industries interest you, how much you would like to earn, very important. Um, and right, so creating this picture in your mind and this roadmap to where it is today and where you want to go. Now, I did say that there was a bit of lack of clarity, and you can ask, so how can I know all this tomorrow if I'm lacking clarity? So there are a few things that can help you gain some clarity on that. And the first one, I believe, is talking to people. This is something that I hadn't realized that was easy to do and would drive so much value. Just going for coffee chats, maybe curious career conversations online, drop a line to someone, say, hey, I've seen that you're doing this. I would love to talk about what it is that you're doing. Do you have 15, 20 minutes to talk about it? And then that means that you can get to know more about what's happening in the industry, what people are working on, and find out if it's something you would like to do in the past. And in terms of organizations, facilitating curious career conversations could be very impactful as well. If talking to people is something that scares you, I totally understand that we work in data. The majority of us are introverts and very shy. You can avoid that by reading job descriptions, by listening to podcasts, reading blogs, etc. So there is a lot of content out there today where you can actually find out what people are doing. And I'm actually hosting and producing the Women in Data podcast where people talk about their job all the time. So there are quite a few good data podcasts where you can find that out. If you're interested, I'm happy to share a list later on. The last thing is to do some shadowing. So that's just about sitting with someone at work that's doing a job that you think you might be interested in doing, understanding how their day-to-day is going, and then building up from there. So getting the knowledge, experiencing what it means to work in that role. And you can do that in your organization. So there are also other organizations that would allow some shadowing if you have a network there. So outside of career crafting, there is definitely improving the access to mentors and coaches. And this is something that I'm asked quite a lot is how can I find a mentor? So usually what people will do is they will go to someone and say, hey, can you be my mentor? And the answer is, nope, I'm too busy. I mean, I don't know where you are in the world, but I live in London. Everybody is busy, working very fast, working a lot, and they just don't have time. So what I'm going to do is I will provide you with some strategies and tips to find a mentor without actually asking someone to be your mentor. So these are 4 steps, very easy, very simple to implement. And I've tried that and had other people trying that, and it works quite well. Obviously, maybe not all the time, but it definitely increases the chance of getting a mentor. So the first one is identifying a problem that you are trying to solve. For example, your problem might be, I don't know, I want to learn Python, whatever. Then you find a couple of people who are experts in the area, so people who are really great at coding in Python in your field. So let's say you want to learn Python for data analytics, so someone who is really good at using pandas, for example. You ask them a specific question relating to your problem that you're trying to solve. Go back, try their advice, and then report back. So, why this is different from asking for someone to be your mentor is that you've asked them one question. They're experts. It would have taken them 5-10 minutes to reply to your question. And that's it, you have an advice. And then you've try the advice and then you go back and start again. Hey, I have this problem. So you can actually get quite a lot from one person by having this kind of strategy. And what I find happens quite often is that if you have the right person, after you've asked one or two questions, they will go and say, why don't we take half an hour and talk about it? And that's it, you've had your mentor. Something I would like to highlight is that having a mentor and getting mentoring is not a one-way street. So it's not a one-way road. So while you look for a mentor, you also need to be a mentor to someone. And that means that we're all learning together, we're all getting the benefit, and that just improves career clarity and creates a lot of learning opportunities as well. Um, Moving on to the last part to help improve the clarity on careers is to better the structure for learning and development. As I said, organizations tend to leave that to the individuals, and some of them will go and say, oh, yes, we have a learning budget. You can spend 1,000, 2,000, sometimes £5,000 on learning. But if people don't know where they can spend the money, how they can spend it, and they don't feel like they have the space to actually do learning and development, then the money is not going to be used. And I kind of find that as being an easy win for organization to attract talent. Is they go and say, oh yeah, we have this learning budget, come, you can learn, and then in the end no one uses it. So I believe to address that, something that's important to have is a personal development plan. And what is important to have in a personal development plan? I don't know if anyone has a development plan in place. Could we share maybe in the chat if you have a personal development plan in place, or if your team has a personal development plan in place? Oh, okay. Yeah, some people have a plan in place. That's really good. I do believe they make a big difference in terms of uh, gaining clarity and progressing in your career. So what I suggest you put in a development plan is the what. What skill do you want to learn or improve? And having clear objectives against that and understanding what is very important. Then thinking about why. Why do you want to learn this skill? And the why is important because very often we have a lot of shiny skills going around that everyone wants to learn because everybody talks about it. So it's all the ones with the buzzwords, but they might not support your development or your goals. So being clear on why you want to learn this skill means that you're going to be able to prioritize your learning and progress at the pace you want to progress. Then think about your timeline, the barriers to learning, what can stop you, what can get in the way of you learning this skill, and then think about strategies to overcome these barriers. Find mentors. So now you have some tips on how to find some mentorship. And then what is your definition of success and what good looks like? So again, this is a team effort, and learning and development or putting together a personal development plan is not going to happen if it's just you that's in the game. So surround yourself with people who can support you. Involve your manager, share your plan if it's appropriate. Obviously, if your plan says, I want to leave the organization in 3 months, it might not be the smartest thing to show it to your manager unless you have this kind of open relationship with them. So keep that in mind. As far as a resource bank, so if you want to progress in your organization, for example, on data visualization, ask them, what are the best dashboards in the organization that I can look like and aspire to create dashboards like this, and find a learning buddy. Right, so this is it for the career clarity. What we're going to do now is move on to how to address the misalignment between data professionals and the expectations of the business. I think this one is one that I like a lot because there are so many stories out there of misalignment, and we're just going on and on and on, and it feels like we're not learning from our mistakes. So I felt like it was very important to talk about this today, just so that it's at the top of everyone's mind, and we can think about it when the opportunity arises. So why is there a misalignment in our field? Well, the first one is that data professionals want to do cool stuff, and they want to do it in a cool way. They want to apply learnings. I know that when I started working, all I could think about was building predictive models, do these clusterings, doing all these things. And then I very rapidly realized that the organization I was in had no interest in doing that. Um, so that was my my first experience working in data. And then on the opposite of that, there is the business who wants to have a quick solution, solve the problem in an efficient way, or to some extent, without really caring about how you go about doing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to address both sides by using stories. So these are real life stories that people have shared, and just so we can see the issue with the misalignment and how we can address that. So on the business side, so I've got the story of Tom, who has a PhD and worked for a couple of years in data science before he was hired by a company to help them build their analytics capabilities. So Tom felt like this was a good next step for him, a great challenge that he was really keen on to take on. But when he joined the organization, what he realized it was that all they cared about was having Excel dashboards, or in their dashboard, getting a very specific number that they had already worked out in their head. So it felt like they knew the number, but they wanted Tom to give them the number. So at some point, Tom felt like, I'm a data scientist, I've got a PhD, I know all these really great things that can make an impact outside of building Excel dashboards. I want to put these proposals forward and make sure that the business is gaining value from it. But every time he tried to propose an advanced analytics project, it was rejected. And what happened is that Tom felt like he was getting very frustrated. He was powerless. And he also felt like he wasn't good enough because he couldn't convey these ideas and convince the business that using advanced analytics for solving some of their business was a really good solution, and that could drive more value than having these Excel dashboards. This story is not happy ending story because Tom ended up leaving the field because of that. And unfortunately, I know quite a few people who have left because of some of the misalignment that they've encountered. Obviously, there were other problems as well, but this is one that keeps coming back. Um, on the data side, and before I go to the data side, actually, I would like to go back to the business side, where there is this thing around businesses, and Paul, I'm sure you would have seen that before. So businesses who have their idea of who they want to hire, they're always looking for top talent. So they go, especially today, I mean, with all the LLMs and what's happening in AI, all the job descriptions I'm seeing flying around LinkedIn, people are like, yes, I want a data analyst who has extensive experience in machine learning. How do you find a data analyst that does machine learning? It's just all these misalignment and businesses wanting top talent, having a gigantic list of skills, and then people with these skills apply to the jobs, take the jobs, and then realize, well, there is no ML in that job that I applied for, or whatever it was that was advertised, and they find this is not what was the reality of the role. On the data side, I've got the story of Sally, who works in a data science team that builds products. And what Sally's team did is that they felt like there was an opportunity to build a recommendation engine based on customers' previous purchases. So they built the whole models behind it, optimized it, working well. Unfortunately, there was no engineering support. So there was no I guess, resource available to be able to implement the recommendation engine in the app, and then the project was then shelved. So what happened there is that the data science teams got very excited about what they could do, showcasing their skills, doing something great for the business, but then their work wasn't aligned with the expectations of the business, or not necessarily the expectations, but at least their priority at the moment. Um, so how can we improve this alignment? The first thing we can do is ensuring that there is appropriate leadership in place in organization. So when you join an organization, make sure that I don't know, I've had roles where they were asking for the best data scientist, and then you ask about, but who is this role is going to be reporting to into? And then the answer is, oh, it might report into marketing or IT, I don't know. There is no data leader, there is no one driving the data strategy of the organization. So if this is something that's important to you, make sure that when you go, there is a proper data leadership in place. And for organizations as well, looking into data strategy is quite important. This is talked a lot about on the Hub and Spoken podcast, which I find quite a good one to listen to. Next step is to get really close to what skills and competencies are needed to do a job, not what's desired. So really getting a good understanding of, to perform well in this role, what do I need to know? Or to perform well in this role, and I'm hiring to have. Then spending time speaking with other people and other teams to understand where their priorities sit, what people have at the top of their minds, and align that with projects you're working on and how you're tackling problems. Thinking about, when you think about a project, asking yourself, is this aligned with the business objectives? So this is to ensure that then your project has an impact and it's not shelved. And then lastly, sometimes you can solve 80% of a problem with 20% of effort. And then if you want to go and try a different techniques, you can then do that in learning time, or when you have a bit more time, or during a hackathon or something. So these are the strategies to align expectations between businesses and analytics professionals. And then we're going to move into how we can address cross-functional collaboration. So I think this is possibly my shortest part on this talk, but it's also one of the most important. So there are lots of barriers to unlock the potential of data analytics. So I felt like these three were the most important one. And when it comes to poor collaboration, I've seen it happen so many times, where relationships with other teams are very transactional. So someone will come and say, I need this, and then you give them that. Then there is a lot of misunderstanding. Things are lost in translation. So you have to do the work over and over again. Work is misused, it's not interpreted properly. We have different personalities, which means that sometimes we struggle to communicate or get along or work well together. And when all this gets to a very extreme point, what we see is a loss of trust in others' abilities. So I've been in teams in the past where people were saying, I don't believe anything they're saying because they don't know what they're talking about. I'm not going to listen. I'm just going to do whatever I feel is right. And this is really, really causing problems when it comes to collaboration and making sure that data is well integrated in an organization. Sorry. So let's move to the story of Jane. So Jane used to work in a team that was working with account managers and commercial teams, so account managers and salespeople. And her team on a daily basis was receiving questions. So that's what I was talking about on the transactional relationships. So they would come and say, hey, I have this problem. Can you please give me this information? So the analyst will then go and give that particular information to the account manager. few hours later, a few days later, account manager will come back and say, this doesn't really answer my question. Can you give me this instead? And then they will go and give that. And then I think you can guess where I'm coming from. There is this loop where it's a never ending list of questions and back and forth that doesn't lead to anywhere really. And what this created for Jane is that she felt like she had no power to do proper analytics, because if you spend all your days just pulling numbers that someone's asked you, and that number is never the number that they're looking after, that they're after, then you can't really spend time to do other work, to do more impactful work that would be more rewarding to you. And you just feel like you're used to pull numbers from a database, and that your skills are being misused. So how can we address these kind of situations and enhance cross-functional collaboration? This is something I spent a lot of time thinking about, and it could have a webinar just on its own, I think. So to me, the first step is on agreeing on the ways of working. How are the questions going to come to the analytics team? How are we going to prioritize this? How do we make sure that we're answering the right question, not just giving a number? So making sure that analytics basically is working side to side with the business teams to act as a trusted partner, to act as a consultant as well. So it's not about the business team coming and asking questions, it's about analytics helping them understand what it is that they're trying to solve, and then analytics will then come and say, okay, because of the problem you're having, this is what I propose that we look into. So agreeing on ways of working for that would be definitely the best way to start. Then you can demonstrate your capabilities by showing initiative. So if you know problems that people are facing, you can show initiatives and anticipate their needs. Seek to understand, as I said, the problem they are trying to solve. So this is a very big theme in that. Have an analyst take part in the meetings of other teams. So that means that before the team then comes with questions, there is already an analyst there that can understand the problems and potentially address the questions, or stop people from promising things that cannot be done, or stopping from making promises where we could actually do something different, or that would take more than the one day that someone promised a client. And then the last part is respect the respective knowledge and abilities of people from various teams. So in analytics, in data science, we have some very specific skills that other people don't have. So helping other teams understand our skills, how we can support them, is very important for them to be able to respect our knowledge. But it's also valid on the other side. We're experts in data, others are experts in their own area. So respecting that, understanding where everybody is a knowledge matter expert, and relying on each other's experience can make a very good difference in cross-functional collaborations. So that's it for today. What we've done is we looked at how to unlock the potential of data analytics by providing better career guidance to data professionals, realigning expectations between data professionals and business, and also improving cross-functional collaborations. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to take them. But in the meantime, feel free to scan my QR code, go on my LinkedIn, connect, follow the podcast. And if there are any questions that you feel a bit too shy to ask here today in front of everybody, reach out on LinkedIn and I will be more than happy to take them there.
Superb. Thanks for that, Karen. Let's have some questions.
Sorry, I'm terrible at reading fast. So are there questions in the chat that people would like to
think I've seen a few going there. Yeah. I think Chris held his hand up.
Yes, Chris. Sorry. Chris, are you able to unmute? Or... Oh, I can allow the mic. There you go. Chris, you should be able to unmute now and ask your question.
Yeah, that's. I wonder why I can't unmute. Is Hannah there? Is that from our main director, or is that?
So
yeah, I think it might. I think there might be a setting that if we allow them to, it should be able. They should be able to, but I don't think it seems to be working.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's Thunder or Thunder. I just allowed your mic so you can unmute.
Yes, okay, thank you. So just a bit of backstory. Thank you for this talk. It was really insightful. But my thing is, I have a certification in data science, and the analysis that we did, I feel like it was pretty basic. I don't know to what extent the actual data analysis the data analyst actually does with going into the data, because I don't know if we were as focused as a data analyst would be. I was wondering if I can get a job as a data analyst with a data science certification. Is that possible?
So I guess it depends on what it is that you're trying to achieve in your career, right? So some people will think that the next step to data science is that the next step, the progression from data analytics to data science. What am I talking about? The progression from data analytics is data science. This is not correct. So these are two different career paths. So while you can go from data analytics to data science if you have the skills, it doesn't mean that because you're a data analyst, when you get promoted, you're a data scientist. So before answering your question, I think what I would like to understand is what it is that what role are you interested in? Do you want to be a data analyst or do you want to be a data scientist?
I want to be a data analyst right now, but when I got into the data space, I got like a qualification as a data scientist. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't see why, if you've built the skills and you're able to analyze data, you wouldn't be able to get a job as a data analyst. The main difference is around really digging into the data and understand. Well, I guess it depends on what job, right? Some jobs would be data analysts, but they are data scientists, and the other way around as well. So I think just find something that matches your skill set and that you would like to do, and show that you are able to actually do the work, and that's important. So if you're able to code with SQL or any, so SQL is very important to data analysts, and another programming language, so that could be R, Python, or SAS. That's a good one. Understanding that you're able to translate business problems into analytics questions and address these is a good one as well, and that you're able to then present your data, and that depends also on what role. So sometimes it can be a back-end role, but showing that you're able to understand what you find in the data is quite important. I don't think the certification would get in the way there.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
It looks like there's a few coming through, Karen. Can you see them?
I can't. Is it in the Q&A?
Yeah, it's coming through. I can see them popping up in
Right.
the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not going into the Q&A. It's just running in the chat. Yeah. That's
so
the
might
confusion.
were disabled. All right. So PDP, would you advise on sitting down with my manager, or would I get more value in doing it with a mentor instead? So Bailey is asking if it's better to do a PDP, so the personal development plan, with the manager or with a mentor instead. I think it depends on what you want to do. So if your goal is to progress in the organization that you're in, or if your goal is to learn in general, then you will want to know. That will help you decide who to sit with. I would always strongly advise to work with your manager on your personal development plan, even if there is no talks around promotion. So a personal development plan doesn't necessarily lead to promotion, but your manager is very close to your job. They know what your strengths are, hopefully. They know your areas for development, and they're going to be able to help you with that. Where there might be some limitations is that the manager might just think only about development within the organization, and then you can then go and complement that with a mentor, or if you have a good relationship with your manager, you can then ask them, yes, but there is these skills that I really would like to develop for the future. Is that something I can put in there? What I like to do with my team is have maybe 3 development plans relating to the organization, and have 1 development plan that is related to the career in general of the analyst. The next question. So the question from Melanie is, apart from being a supporting role for product teams, how can data teams advocate for driving data-driven recommendations in the business? Which part of the business can data teams drive into? I think in general, data team can dive in most business areas. It is all about creating relationship with the other team. So this is this cross-functional collaboration thing I was talking about, but also aligning the expectations. Sitting with people, trying to understand what it is they are trying to solve, what problems they have. And then once you understand their problem, you can find out how data can support their needs, and discuss that with them. So when organizations are not fully data literate, then they will struggle themselves to understand how data can support them. And it is our role, or data leadership role, to go and understand how can I support you, and that means that you can have impact on that side. Flora had a question, so I just allowed their mic.
Hi, Karen. I was hoping to get some advice from you on how I can ensure that I get the right technical support when I start a new role in a company. So a bit of background about myself. I'm a data analyst. I've had an education in data science, so I can program in PySpark and Python, currently working on big data technology. Unfortunately, what I've been quite disappointed at myself is that I frequently got into positions in which I thought I was going to get the technical support and training from a company, but in the end I didn't. So do you think if there's any way I could be better prepared and perhaps letting myself kind of make a better judgment whether I will get that kind of support from a company? So what I do is I normally would look at the interviewers or my supposed direct report on LinkedIn and see that kind of experience, but sometimes that doesn't tell the full stories. Hence, sometimes I end up in a situation in which I thought I was going to get support, but I ended up just being the only technical person, and it's kind of like it's kind of hindering my career progression, as I wouldn't get mentoring, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so just to make sure I understand the question well, when you say support, it means helping you figure out how to do things, or if you're stuck. Okay.
That is right, yeah.
Yeah, so here I think there are two things. So the first one is when you look for a new job. So you're looking for a new job and you want to make sure that you will get the support you need. And the second part is if you're already in an organization and you're finding you don't have enough support, how do you address that? So the first one on how to try to understand if you would get support in your organization, that's a very tricky one. But network is key here. We tend to not put enough emphasis on networking in data, but it's very important to develop your network. And then what that means is then instead of just looking at the different people that you will be working with based on their LinkedIn, you can go and ask someone who could have worked in this organization before how that was. Or you can even reach out to people around who would have been in similar roles to see what kind of environment you can expect. So there will potentially be someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows the organization. That takes time. It's something that you will build over the years and that you will have to work on continuously, a bit like mentoring. When you're already in the organization and you feel like you don't have the support you need, first thing is to talk about it with your manager. If you feel like this is not a possibility, or if you feel like your manager is not being supportive enough, then you can reach out to other people in your network. And I mentioned earlier learning buddies. So something that people do quite a lot is share a problem they're having, obviously not sharing everything because data is sensitive. Ask for people's opinion. Have you been in this situation? How have you overcome that? And this is a problem that people who have transitioned into data from a different field find quite a lot as well. Building these connections to be able to debug together. If you are the only technical person in the organization, sometimes you can just talk to people who are not technical as well, and they can come up with ideas and other ways to approach things without going into the deep technical side of things, but that can help out. But I think definitely reach out to people. If you can't find someone outside of the organization that would know the organization when you're looking for a job, it could just be asking for a 20 minutes chat with someone inside. I know before joining Monzo, I reached out to 3 different people and we had a coffee chat, and they told me about how it is to work there. So that's something that I use quite a lot.
Thank you, Karen. That's certainly really helpful with your emphasis on networking.
You're welcome. There is another. I will just take one question in the chat, and then I see that there is another question, another hand raised. When it comes to querying a database, how many rows or chunk of data can be queried at once? Ooh.
Well, that's a massive question.
Big question.
Good luck with that one, Karen.
Yeah. I do not know the answer to that question.
Does anyone know the answer?
I think it depends on your computing power, no? How fast it's going to go and how much you can get at once really depends on the power. But you have to speak with IT ahead to understand the capability. Yes, I would definitely speak with IT to understand the capabilities of the server. But something you can do to test depends on where you're querying. But there are some tools. So, for example, if you're using BigQuery, when you write a query and other places as well, you can see how much computing power is going to use and how much gigas or terabytes of data is going to pull. But if I can give an advice on a slightly different topic, is when you work with gigantic amount of data, don't try to query it all at once. Make sure that you extract some of the data before, and then test all your code in that data that you're extracting before applying it to the whole database and waiting days before it fails. So that means that you can tune your code on a small sample check that the calculations are correct. So you run your code, it runs fine. Go look at your numbers. Is that what you were expecting? And once you're happy with that, that's then that you can go and run it on everything. That will help quite a lot. We have some hands that are raised. Are people able to unraise their hand when they Tango, for example, do you still have a question or?
Yes, I
Yeah.
have another one. But I know.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to, because I'm trying to build a portfolio. So I was wondering if you maybe have resources I can use, maybe, I don't know, maybe like data sets I can look into when I want to build maybe like personal projects.
So I don't have anything myself, but DataCamp has quite a few data sets, and you will find some on and now I forgot the name. Oh, what's this place where you find competitions? Perfect timing to have a blank mind, right? I will remember the name probably later, but there are places online where you can find data sets. Something you can do also is join hackathons. So there are, if you research for hackathons, there will be hackathons around where you can find data and work on projects. Now it's going to annoy me that I'm not finding the name of the platform. Someone might
No, it's
know,
okay.
to be fair.
Do some research. Thank you.
You're welcome. Then there is Michael asking how I've dealt with a scenario where stakeholders don't even know the problem they're trying to solve. Well, that's what happens every single day. Welcome to data. I think it's all. Have you heard of the 5 whys? I find it quite impactful in that situation. So people will come and say, I have a problem, and they're unable to explain their problems. So I would really try to get them to say something, then ask the question slightly differently. So I think you need to practice the art of asking questions here. And then once you get into, this is what I'm trying to do, and then you kind of have a good understanding of what it is that they're trying to do, basic. Start asking why. Why are you trying to do this? And then do it again, why and why. And then at some point, you're going to get to the bottom of the real problem they're trying to solve. When we work in data, I feel like we're detectives. So we're detectives of the data, but we're also detective on the people side of things. Always trying to understand patterns and what people are thinking and all these things. It takes some time, but it definitely drives a lot of value, because there is nothing worse than spending 2-3 weeks working on something, and then when you're done with it, they come and tell you, well, that's not what I wanted, or it doesn't help me. So spending some time asking why and trying to get people to get to the answer is very important. And if you feel like you're not getting to the bottom of it, you can involve someone else that could potentially ask the question differently, or someone else that would have extra knowledge that the other person doesn't have. How much Python do you need to know? Well, it depends on Chris, depends on the job you're going for. I can't code in Python, for example, and that hasn't stopped me so far in my career. I used to think it was going to be a massive problem. I was getting a bit obsessed with, I need to learn Python. Well, it hasn't stopped anything. I think once you know one language, it's quite easy to pick another one. I can read Python, for example. I haven't had the need to actually write it.
Yeah, I think
No.
that's a good point, Karen. I think there'll be some jobs that will need powerful Python, but a lot of these analytical roles, these insight roles, as long as you're proficient in one, employers will definitely take a view on that, and it shouldn't be too difficult for you to upskill in that when you're in the role.
Yeah, and see, it really depends on where you go, as you said. But then yeah, I think we're lifelong learners. So if you have basics, then you can pick it up after. Pete, do you think having data skills that are very specific to a certain industry is a barrier to moving to a different industry? I don't think data skills can ever be specific to an industry. There is always going to be a transferable aspect of data skills. What might be specific is your knowledge and understanding of the data of that industry, but then wherever you go, no matter the company, their data is going to be different and you're going to have to start and learn again. Something you can do to maybe show that your skills are transferable is really having the list and then showing how you can transfer them to a different industry. Think about the problems that or the industry you want to go to is facing, how data can solve this, and then just show that you've thought about it and you can actually apply your skills there. I've recently moved from marketing to operations, having absolutely no idea of what was happening in operations, and what it takes some adjusting and some bravery. It's not impossible. So, and I think it just adds value to have someone coming from a different area because you can think outside of the box as well.
Yeah, definitely agree with that.
Do we have any more questions?
I think we must be. I think we're nearly run out of time, Karen.
Yes,
We're nearly.
Kaggle,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
They found Kaggle. Yes, that's the one I meant.
There you go. You won't have that annoying. Oh, I can't remember that now. It's cleared. It should clear the block. Perfect. Okay. Well, we are end of our session unless there's something really urgent that needs to be answered. Thank you very much, Karen, for that. That was superb. And thank you very much for everyone attending. Great session, Karen. Thank you very much.
And as I said, feel free to connect on LinkedIn and ask more questions there.
Perfect. Right. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Speak to you all again. Cheers, Karen.
Bye.
Bye-bye.